The 2018 World Junior Championships was memorable for a lot of reasons. We saw Casey Mittelstadt win tournament MVP and Canada win another gold medal, and perhaps one of the most memorable moments in tournament history take place during the gold medal game. After Canada defeated Sweden, Sweden would be awarded their silver medals, and this was when the controversy began, as numerous players, including Rasmus Dahlin, took off their medals once it was placed around their necks, violating the World Junior Championship rules. But one player took it a step further. Rangers prospect Lias Andersson was so upset that he not only took off his medal, but would throw it into the stands out of pure frustration in full-out tears. This moment would forever rub hockey fans the wrong way and would hurt Andersson's reputation. Andersson would be destroyed by fans on social media afterwards, and it was announced that the players who took off their medals would be suspended from playing in the 2019 World Juniors. And that would spark up even more conversation, as some argue that the players should be allowed to take off the medals, as there's a 99% chance that even you would be upset that you lost the gold, while others stated that only Andersson should take the punishment due to his over-the-top behavior and let the rest of the team off the hook. Nonetheless, it wasn't a good look for Team Sweden at all, and especially for Lias Andersson. Like mentioned earlier, Andersson would be called soft, a whiner, and a lot of things that shouldn't be mentioned. His reputation would already become tainted before playing a single NHL game, and it didn't help when Andersson would request a trade out of New York in 2019. This was after he would be loaned to HV71 in the SHL and after a poor performance in both the NHL and AHL. Andersson was reported to be feeling both homesick and in need of a change of scenery, yet some fans were still upset that Andersson couldn't suck it up and play. This offseason, Lias finally got his wish, being traded to the LA Kings, giving him a second chance in the NHL. Andersson's only 22 and has plenty of time to become a solid contributor, but his reputation has already been damaged and he'll have to do a lot to get his credibility back up. Andersson isn't the only player whose career would be ruined by one decision or play. In fact, Andersson's case is extremely mild and his career is still ongoing for now. As we go deeper in today's video, some of these players would commit actions so terrible that their careers would forever be tarnished. Game 6 of the 1993 first round series between the Capitals and Islanders will forever be remembered due to one nasty hit Islanders forward Pierre Turgeon would suffer after scoring the series clinching goal in New York. To understand how devastating this hit was for both players involved, we need to rewind a bit. First, the player at fault was fan favorite Dale Hunter, who is not only talented on the score sheet, but talented with his fists. Hunter is in fact the only player in NHL history to record over 1,000 points and 3,000 penalty minutes in his career. He should be a definite Hall of Famer, but many state that this hit on Pierre Turgeon is what cost him a spot in the Hall of Fame. Throughout this series, the Islanders would score 3 consecutive overtime winners after trailing 1-0 in the series, and this frustrated a ton of Capitals players, including Dale Hunter. So when the Islanders would make the game 5-1 halfway throughout the third period, Hunter was infuriated, causing him to perform one of the dirtiest plays in NHL history.
8.5 minutes to play in the third period. Turgeon steals the puck, walks in. Oh, he goes 5-1.
This hit would separate Turgeon's shoulder, forcing him to leave the game and miss out on the entire series against the Penguins in the following round. Luckily for Pierre, he would be okay afterwards, enjoying a lengthy NHL career and even receiving the Lady Byng Award that year due to his resilience following the injury. As for Dale Hunter, his entire reputation would be ruined. Islanders play-by-play man Ken McDonald stated the hit as, quote, not only a dark moment for the Capitals, but a dark moment for the game. Eventually, he would get his karma soon after, as after his 79-point season that year, his numbers would begin to fall off. He'd still produce 30 points a year and would even have a 46-point campaign, but 7 years after the incident, he would retire from the NHL. Hunter will always be known as a very talented all-around player and even as a fan favorite to some, but to most, he is now known as a dirty player who delivered one of the biggest cheap shots in NHL history. And speaking of cheap shots,
Shot was young, but he missed on the far side. Bruins poking down the ice. Neely slow getting up. He's upended. He's still on his knees back there. At the Boston blue line, Neely has been hurt. He's going off. The Bruins cannot afford to lose Cam Neely.
This collision would occur during a playoff game in the 91-92 season during the peak of the Bruins-Penguins rivalry. Ironically enough, both players involved with the hit had an ongoing beef as well. For those who know Ulf Samuelsson, you'd know just how dirty of a player he was on the ice. Samuelsson would have a reputation of being both dirty and cheap after countless hits and checks that would ruin players' bodies and in some cases careers. Although this collision seems like an ordinary one, this would eventually lead to the demise of Cam Neely, making Ulf Samuelsson's hate skyrocket even more. Neely was a Bruins fan favorite. After the Bees were able to snag him from Vancouver, he became one of the team's top producers and an absolute star. So headed into the series against Pittsburgh, the Bruins knew they had to rely on him and others to produce some offense. So when the collision occurred during Game 3 of the series, it worried Bruins fans and made Samuelsson one of the most hated villains in Massachusetts. After taking a closer look into the hit, you can see Samuelsson would leg check Neely after he would attempt to poke the puck around Samuelsson. This hit seemed painful, but he would return in Game 6 and would, well, again sustain a hit to the knee. These consecutive blows to the legs would lead Neely to developing myositis ossificans, a fancy term for calcification of the muscle. This caused Neely's muscles in his leg to turn into bone, only allowing him to play in 22 games in a span of 2 seasons. He would only play a total of 162 games out of a possible 410 games before eventually retiring, making Neely's career end due to the hit. Samuelsson's career would forever be ruined after the fact, as he ruined Neely's career, cementing himself as one of the most hated players in league history. The Bruins fans were so heated that they even made signs afterwards that stated "Kill Ulf" that would be held up by the people in the stands. Samuelsson would be served justice years later, however, as Ty Domi did the fans a favor by knocking him out cold with one punch to the face during Ulf's time as a Ranger.
Now get it back near side Korea. Korea, the fans want one.
This sports moment will forever live in infamy due to the heroic comeback of Paul Kariya after sustaining a brutal hit by Devils star Scott Stevens. This one I expect to be short, as we all know how this hit happened and how Kariya would respond to it. But to break things down, it's Game 6 of the 2003 Stanley Cup Final, and Ducks' Paul Kariya is attempting to steam down center ice with the puck to either set up a chance or score. His opponent, Scott Stevens, who was known as one of the league's most hardest hitters at the time, eventually of all time. Stevens would absolutely rock Kariya for an open ice hit that would leave Kariya in very bad shape. Just by looking at it, he's clearly concussed and his visor was fogging up due to Kariya's heavy breathing. At the time, Kariya most likely had no idea as to where he was, and what's even creepier is that in an interview after his retirement, Kariya even goes on to admit that he knows very little to absolutely nothing about what happened in Game 6 and so on. He would leave the ice for a bit, but would soon come out later itching for vengeance, and his moment arrived. To this day, Scott Stevens is despised due to his hit on Kariya, and what's sad is that Paul wasn't the only star Stevens would eventually ruin either, as he would also infamously hit Lindros as well. Both hits would lead to both players' eventual struggles with injuries, making Stevens one of the most hated players on this list. For this last one, we have to go back all the way to 1937 in a game that saw the Canadiens take on the Chicago Blackhawks. At the time, Howie Morenz was known as one of the league's stars for years on end. He was one of the NHL's first big stars and was idolized around the league by fans in the stands. However, January 28, 1937 would unexpectedly become the last game Morenz would ever play, as when trying to retrieve a puck, he would lose his balance, falling onto the ice and crashing into the boards. Once slamming into the boards, his leg would get stuck and one of the worst collisions in league history would then take place. The player chasing Morenz down was Earl Seibert, and being unable to slow down, he would collide into Howie full force, snapping his caught leg, causing Morenz to immediately be rushed to the hospital. Howie would be unable to play for the remainder of the season and would soon begin to develop blood clots in his damaged leg. On March 8th of that year, Morenz would attempt to use the restroom when he would collapse to the floor and would be pronounced dead. His cause of death was from coronary embolism caused by those clots in his leg. Now, there is little video evidence of this incident online, but I was able to find a short 40-second clip from an old feature on Howie Morenz.
Howie Morenz never returned to the Montreal Canadiens. 40 days after the game against Chicago, he got out of his hospital bed, tried to walk, collapsed, and died. He was only 34. The city of Montreal was in shock. Howie Morenz's body was taken to the Forum, so his fans could say goodbye.
Seibert's reputation would instantly be stained, ruining his career, and he'll forever be known as the player who killed Howie Morenz. In a way, I kinda feel for Earl. His inability to stop put him in the wrong place at the wrong time. Even he later admitted it wasn't intentional. But as we've seen in today's video, all it takes is one cheap shot, hit, or even an accident to ruin one player's career for better or for worse.